All right, everyone. I think that we're probably going to have some people continuing to join because, as I mentioned, we were having a problem. It looks like the notifications that we had sent out were getting marked as spam. So I did resend those, but it was just a couple minutes ago. So I think we probably will still have some people continuing to join. But for those of you who are here on time, thank you very much. I think we can go ahead and get started. I'm really excited to introduce Hugo. Hugo works for one of the very long-time Code Day partners, LexisNexis Risk Solutions, and specifically in their HPCC division. Anyone who's participated in the Big Data Challenge over the past several years probably has interacted with HPCC, and they have a really awesome, wonderful internship program that is open to students all over, high school students, college students. They have taken many Code Day alumni in the past and have actually even hired some Code Day alumni into full-time positions. So it's a really great opportunity. I'm really excited to have Hugo here to talk to you a little bit more about it. And with that, I will turn it over to Hugo to tell you more. So thanks, Hugo.
Thank you so much, Tyler. And hello, everyone. Welcome to this info session about the HPCC Systems Internship Program. Well, I'm Hugo Watanuki. I'm currently responsible for the internship program at LexisNexis Risk Solutions. And today I'm here to talk a little bit about our company, what we do, the technology that Tyler just mentioned, HPCC Systems, and also give you an overview of the internship program. But first of all, I want to thank you for joining this info session, taking the time to join us today. I also want to thank Tyler and the entire Code Day team. Like he told us, we have been partnering for a while now, and I hope to continue allowing opportunities for the Code Day students to find their place on the IT industry. So it's a really a pleasure for us as well. All right. Well, I have here content from more or less 30 minutes of presentations. But feel free to ask your questions throughout the slides. We have a Q&A feature enabled in this session. And of course, I will make sure we have plenty of time towards the end of the session in case you want to raise your question as well, okay? So let's get started. So first of all, for those of you who have never heard about LexisNexis before, I thought I could bring this corporate slide, if you will. That tries to resume what we do in terms of a company. So what we do exactly, all right? So basically, on a day-to-day basis, we try to leverage 5 main capabilities to provide customers the opportunity to assess risk, okay? And what do you mean by those 5 capabilities? Well, we are a big data company, okay? Everything that we do is usually centered around a huge volume of data around people and companies, okay? So it always starts with data. We have one of the largest data resources in the entire world, and we have our own big data technology to actually process that data and help us extract valuable information from it. Okay, so those are the 2 foundational resources we have at our company. But for those of you who have heard about big data already, you might be aware that just having access to the data is not exactly what gives you the possibility of extracting value from it. You also need to be capable of managing or manipulating that data. So that's why the 3rd element we have in our company is our own proprietary linking technology that allows us to actually manipulate and cluster the data. So let's say, for example, you as an individual might have several addresses, several phone numbers or email accounts. This technology allows us to actually cluster everything considered as an attribute from that person within the single cluster. And with that, we have a very large set of information around peoples and individuals and companies, actually, all right? Now, we also have very sophisticated analytics and insight capabilities. We also have our own algorithms to help extract data or information from those clusters. And of course, at the end of the day, each industry has its own data need. So let's say, for instance, if you are an insurance company and you want to know what's the risk associated of issuing a policy for a specific driver, we need to make sure we have the data that is specific for that need. And that's why, as part of our company, we also have people that are specified on certain industries or segments of the market. All right. But at the end of the day, we try to combine those 5 capabilities to give customers solutions on top of big data that are really centered on their own specific needs. All right. And with that, they can assess risk and opportunities accordingly. But I know those concepts might seem too broad, too conceptual in nature. What we do exactly in practical terms. So let's go to the next slide where I can show you one such practical example. And I will start with this collusion example, all right? So on the left side here on this graph, what we have is a representation of couple car accidents that one insurance company provided us a few years ago. So every A on that graph, like you can see here, for instance, is a car accident, and all the dots on the vertices of those graphs are individuals associated with those car accidents. And that insurance company was suspecting from those car accidents because they usually happened around the same geographical area, and they involved much more individuals than the average car accident that they have in the records. But by just looking at the names of the individuals, their addresses, the information that they have within their database, they were never able to connect those accidents except for this weak link right here, right? So they gave us that data, and we combined that data with the data sources we have in-house. And we were able to come up with a much more dense graph that I'm showing on the right side here. And we were able to actually see that there were 2 families coordinating those accidents, but they were clever enough of not using their first-degree relatives on those accidents. So they were using like 2nd- and 3rd-degree relatives because they knew it would be much harder for the insurance company to actually connect those individuals if they were far apart on their family levels. All right. But again, valuable information being extracted from a large amount of data, and you need to have a powerful technology to accomplish that. So that's what we do. This is a practical example of what we do at LexisNexis Risk Solutions. Okay. Now, you might be wondering, okay, so what's the technology behind it? And this is when we start talking about HPCC systems, right? So we had to come up with our own big data technology, given that some of the challenges we were facing with big data were not yet addressed in the market, all right? So what is actually the challenge here? Usually, when companies need to assess risk and opportunities, just like we saw on the previous slide, they know what they are trying to achieve, right? They want an application that, for instance, can take information from a single individual, like his name, his address, his social security number. And from that data, they can extrapolate and associate that individual with all its social network. Or you can actually assess the best information for that individual. If that individual has several addresses, several phone numbers, you can actually use technology to find the best information about that individual. But although this is what they're trying to achieve, what they actually have is a variety of data sources on the left side that is not nearly structured as they want. Okay, so we have big data sources out there containing that information. It could be books, it could be newspapers, YouTube videos, police records, but they are all scattered around the world. And the first challenge that the companies have in that situation is actually extracting the information from those data sources, clean that information, standardize that information because they are all coming from different sources, and finally relate each individual with its attributes. So at the end of the day, you have the information in the shape you need to fulfill the business requirements, all right? But that's a very complex pipeline, if you will. We call that the data funnel, because in reality, what we are trying to do is decrease the volume of the data while we are also increasing the quality of the content within that data. And the technology that actually does that is HPCC systems. Okay, so that's where we apply technology to help companies actually achieve their risk analysis goals, right? So now that you know a little bit more about who we are and what we do, and also about our technology, I would like to start with some information about our internship program. But before I do that, let me just double check in case we have any questions so far. I don't think so.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it.
Perfect. Thank you, Tyler. So if for some reason you are interested in working in this context within this technology environment, I invite you to be part of the HPCC Systems Internship Program, all right? Well, maybe you are just starting to think about a professional career. Maybe this is your first opportunity joining the market. But I wanted to emphasize that no matter in what spectrum of your academic career you are, if you are willing to work with big data, work with open source technologies, machine learning, or systems architecture, all those possibilities are available, currently available on the HPC Systems Internship Program, okay? And what are the main characteristics of the internship program that we run over the summer? Well, I like to mention basically 3 core characteristics that I'm highlighting here on my screen. First of all, it's a 12-week paid program over the summer, okay? So we usually run from end of May, beginning of June, all the way through August every year. And it's a 40-hour commitment that we ask our students to allocate when they join our program, okay? Secondly, it's a mentor-based program, which means we will pair you with a technical expert on our side to make sure you can develop and achieve the goals of your internship. So we never let you alone as part of this internship. You are always pairing with a buddy, if you will, okay? And the internship can be either on-site or remote. We try to be as flexible as possible. To be honest, in the recent years, most of these interns are preferring to join us remotely because that gives them the flexibility of applying irrespective of where they are. It's a global program. But I usually like to list the on-site option as well, because you might be living closer to an office and you might want to have the experience of working on site. That's also a possibility. Just so you have an idea, we have offices in South Florida, Atlanta, North Carolina, and also Minnesota. Okay, so if you live nearby those areas, you might find the on-site opportunity to be appealing for you. What are the prerequisites for you to apply in our internship program? Basically 2, okay? First of all, you need to be a student. And again, we are trying to be as flexible as possible in terms of the spectrum of students we accept. So no matter if you are in high school, if you're in college, if you're doing a master's or a PhD, we accept them all, right? We also do not impose hard rules in terms of age. We have been accepting students as young as 15 years old. And again, the experience has been pretty positive over the years. Second requirement for you to apply is a proposal. Okay, so first of all, we are interested in hearing from you what you want to achieve with this internship, and then we try to make sure we have the resources for you to achieve those goals. Okay, and the proposal is nothing formal, to be honest. We are just interested in understanding what your goals are and how you think you can accomplish those goals. So the proposal, we have some examples in the website, if you will, but it's something that can easily be developed over the course of your application process. And we can talk a little bit more about that, if you will. Very important, we are already accepting proposals. So if you are interested in joining our program, you can apply right now. But we will be accepting proposals all the way through end of March next year. So you have a little bit more than 3 months, if you will, to think about it and start developing your proposal. Okay. That's more or less the overview of the internship program. We'll get into more details in the next couple of slides, but the two key resources that I want to leave you before we change slides is, first of all, our website. So I would recommend you to access HPCC systems/intern as your main starting point. And from there, you can access a broad set of information about our internship program. And we also have our own student wiki with a plethora of resources, including examples of proposal submissions, examples of projects completed in previous years, and so forth. And you can access all those resources using the QR code shown in the screen. Okay. I see we have a question on the chat, so I'll just pause for a second and answer that question. So the question is, will international students be able to apply and work without a work visa or anything like that? So if you are an international student and you are actually living in or studying on the place where your citizenship belongs, then you don't need any special visa. But if you are a foreign student studying in America without a citizenship, yes, we will need at least a visa that allows you to work in the US. Okay, but bear in mind, this is a global program. If for some reason you are living in a different country and you apply from there, we are able to accept you.
And Hugo, just to be clear, that's for the remote program, right? If they did want to work in person in an office, they would need to be able to be in that office location. But as long as they're working remotely from a country that they are allowed to work in already, then they don't need anything. Is that correct?
Yes, but we can also be flexible on that part, Tyler. So for instance, if you are studying in India and you want to do the internship on site at an Indian office, as long as we have an office there, we could pursue that possibility. I think we have done something similar in the UK in previous years. So that could be a possibility. I would recommend the student in that situation to reach out to me and we can discuss case by case.
Thank you.
Okay, welcome. Well, I see a couple of more questions real quick here. So how heavy does grades GPA play in selection? Interesting, very good question. Actually, we don't evaluate your grades or GPA as a hard requirement for the selection. The core artifact of the application process is the proposal. So we are much more interested in understanding what your goals are and if we can support you toward those goals than actually measuring your GPA grades. Of course, if you have good grades and good GPA, probably your proposal will stand out, but that's not a hard requirement, if you will. Okay. And then we have another question. Do I need to have coding skills to apply for the internship? More or less, Joel. So we don't expect you to know everything up front because this is an internship program. This is an opportunity for you to expand your skills. So having some coding skills, basic, will be helpful. But if you're not experienced on coding, that doesn't prevent you joining our program as well. I will show in a couple of slides that before we actually kick off the projects, we try to provide you all the training resources you need upfront for you to get up to speed before you start internship. Okay. And then one last question, will the date we submit our application affect how likely we are to be accepted? Good question. I would say no. The only situation where the date might count against you is in case we receive a very appealing proposal upfront, or a series of very appealing proposals upfront, and the mentors decide to start working with the students ahead of time. This is something that has happened in the past. But if you have a really good proposal at the end of the deadline, I would say we could also try to be flexible and accommodate that student as well. So yes, dates could be playing a role in there, but they are not that critical, I would say. It's very unlikely that we can fulfill all the openings upfront because of the level of the proposals. And Kavita is asking what's paid for the internship. It varies, Kavita. I think at the end of the presentation, depending on what's your current level of educational level, I can talk a little bit about the different ranges of payment, and the other students feel free to ask that question. So if you are high school, you will get something, college, master's or PhD, your payments will vary according to where you are on that spectrum. So think about where you are, and I can come back to that question later to give you the exact number. Right? Okay, I really like that cycle of questions and answers. We'll come back.
Really quick, I did see one person had their hand raised, Joshua. We can come back to if you want to ask a question on chat, we'll just come to that at the very end. You're welcome to put it in Q&A as well.
And keep coming. I really enjoy having these conversations during the presentation as well. Okay. Okay, so maybe you might be thinking now, okay, so what's the sorts of projects the students complete with us? So just to give you a quick example, this is a project from 2022. This is a poster that the student has created. And basically what he was trying to achieve here, he was trying to find a data set available on the internet. He ended up finding the data set on the Center for Disease Controls in the US. And he was interested in understanding what are the factors causing diabetes on individuals. So he found the data set on the Center for Disease Control, and he tried to elaborate a series of analyses. For instance, maybe there is a relationship between diabetes and age of those individuals, diabetes and weight. As you can see, they are somewhat correlated. The older you get, you might be more susceptible to diabetes. And he did that analysis using our technology, and he ended up with this model on the far right, showing how those elements like age, weight, gender, employment status could be associated to diabetes. Okay, so that's a suggestion for all of you. Maybe you have an interesting idea, maybe you have an interesting data set you have found in the internet, and you want to explore that data set. This is perfectly a topic for our internship. All right, this is just one example. Again, on our student wiki, we have many other examples that you can look at. Now, what happens if you get approved into the internship program? So in this slide, I will quickly show you the life cycle of one internship project. So I think one of the questions was around training, right? So the first stage of the internship project starts with what we call onboarding and welcome. This stage actually starts a couple of weeks before the official kickoff of the program. And we will get in touch with you just to make sure you have all your infrastructure and your access ready. So if you're working remotely, we'll make sure you have access to our emails, our infrastructure. If we identify any need for training, we will also send you resources for training upfront. So by the time you start the program, you have the skills you need. And then we'll have a welcome meeting where we will introduce you formally to your mentor. Because like I told you, you will be working with a mentor, with a buddy on a day-to-day basis, okay? Now, after that onboarding is done, we have what we call the development phase. So this is where you will be working most of the time, probably 10 weeks you will be spending on this development phase. And this is where the bulk of work is concentrated. So you will be having daily meetings with your mentor. This is where you'll be exploring your idea, developing code, troubleshooting and testing issues. And we also encourage you to write a blog about what you're doing throughout the project, so you can also reflect about your progress. And at the end of the project, you have something really nice to actually add to your curriculum or even advertise in social media, okay? After that core phase is done, probably on your last or 2 last weeks of the internship, you will start the completion phase. That's when usually you check in code, you make sure you document everything you did. And we also try to pair you with other teams inside the company. So we stimulate students from our internship program to actually present what we have developed throughout the project, the program, and also to create a poster, just like we saw the previous slide, outlining their end results. And the reason why we stimulate those artifacts is because we usually invite all the interns to be part of our community day. So every year we organize an HPCC Systems Community Day, which is actually a conference, a virtual conference where all the community leveraging HPCC systems get together. And we run a poster competition there with all the students that have completed some sort of HPCC systems related project throughout the year. So as part of that poster competition, we issue awards, public and financial awards, symbolic. And we also encourage you to give a talk at that conference if that's something you are willing to do. So we have had high school students from previous years giving talks in our conference and sharing their results with the community. This is actually something pretty common in our case. All right. So this is, in a nutshell, what happens from a high-level perspective. Now, I know we have a couple of more questions there, but I will just switch into the next slide, and then we can address a couple of more questions, because although this is an overview, I wanted to briefly touch base on what happens on a day-to-day basis, okay? So what happens on day 2 after your welcome meeting? Well, we will pair you, like I told you, with a buddy with whom you can discuss and get mentoring from a technical perspective. But I will also be there helping you with any non-technical needs. We call that pastoral support. So I will be following your progress closely as part of that role. And like I told you, we have daily stand-up calls where you meet your mentor to make sure you have all you need to complete the work for that day, and the mentor will be there to help you. But I wanted to highlight that on a weekly basis, we will also all get together, all these students, on weekly group meetings where we can do some social activity. So in this photo here, this is a photo taken from one of those weekly meetings where all the students get together. And we usually invite someone from the company to talk about career, their experiences, and share some advanced tips for those of you willing to join the industry. I told you before, during the onboarding phase, we try to set up all the infrastructure that you might need. And just FYI, we will be leveraging several tools to support you throughout the internship. So we will communicate via email, via Gitter, as you can see here on the left side. So you can chat with your colleagues. And you will also be exposed to software development tools like Git and Jira in case you have never seen them before. But I guess what the key message I want to highlight from this slide is that this is really an open and collaborative environment. Even though the internship project is individual, at the end of the day, you end up interacting with many other individuals and building your own friendship network, if you will, out of this experience. Okay. So let's see, we might have some more questions on the chat. Let's see. So if we are interested in a project, but don't have experience in the particular programming language that the project is written with, will we still be able to work on that project, or would we be better off finding another one? That's an interesting question. I would recommend you to always make your selection based on your personal desire, because it's much easier for us to give you the hard skills you might need to achieve your personal goals than doing the opposite, right? You might know a programming language, but the project might not be appealing, and getting the motivation from that context is way more complex. So I would recommend give it a try on the project that you found most interesting and get in touch with me. We'll see how feasible it could be to have the technical skills developed in time for that project to happen. So that will be my first suggestion, okay? And the second question is, I was just wondering if you could repeat what you said about the compensation level for interns. I couldn't catch that part. My internet cut off. Thank you. Thank you. I thought you were getting confused because of my accent, but thank you by blaming the internet. So yes, we have different pay ranges depending on where you are on your academic spectrum. So since we are on that topic, if you are a high school, you'll probably get $6,000 as part of your payment throughout the program. If you are in the college, you'll probably get somewhere between 9,000 9,600, if I'm not mistaken. And if you're a master's or a PhD, something a little bit above $1,200. So that's what I meant by different pay ranges according to your educational level. All right, good questions. Okay, so just to wrap up in terms of what I wanted to present around the internship program, I usually like to show this slide that tries to capture what I found most appealing about being an intern within the HPCC systems team, okay? So usually when people are looking for an internship, they might be focusing on the professional development that they might acquire from that experience, and that's totally fine. Usually it's what most of the students are looking for, but I'm trying to emphasize in this slide the importance of getting some soft skills as well as part of your personal development. So those are items that I think would be key elements you could obtain as being an intern with us. So first of all, on the professional development side, of course, you will get some big data analytics experience, because that's what we do. And you will be getting some cutting edge technology or contact with cutting edge technology, because we develop technology. We call the internship as a real research and development experience, because we will pair you with top tier technologists so you can learn from them. So that's a very enriching type of experience. And of course, you will be exposed to best practices around software development and project management as well, okay? But then on the other side, you will be getting some very interesting teamwork experience, office experience, if you will, in a culturally diverse environment. So we are a global company. I could consider myself an example of it. I was originally born in Brazil, and I was relocated into the US. So we have several examples like my case, and we have offices throughout the world as well. You will be also exercising some planning and autonomy skills. Remember, this is a project, this is an individual project, and you have to take decisions at the end of the day. But that's a very interesting learning process. Again, we will never let you alone. We have your buddy, and over time, you'll getting those skills developed at a certain pace, okay? And last but not least, one of the key differentiators of our program, if you will, is that we try to expose you as much as possible into scenarios where you can communicate with others, present your idea, and expose you on social media. So everything that you construct or build as part of the internship program goes with your name, it's yours. And at the end of the internship, you end up leaving with a very nice set of artifacts that you can include as part of your resume, or if you're willing to apply with a full-time position with us, okay? Which is something that has happened throughout the years, right? Okay, so this is my last slide of the presentation, the next one. So this is just a compilation of photos from some of the internships we had on the previous years. Not all of them are here. I'm still building this slide with a couple of older pictures from the older interns, but they are here to invite you to be part of the team and make your mark. I would be very glad to come here next year, give this talk, and have some additional photos from Code Day students included on that slide. So come on and join us on this very exciting initiative. And I will just conclude this presentation with my contact information. So here is my email address. Feel free to take a photo, take a screenshot. You are more than welcome to send me a direct message, and I will be happy to address any questions you might have. And I'm also listing as a second option our student mailbox, just in case for some reason you don't want to reach out directly to me. Feel free to reach out our generic mailbox. I will also look at the messages coming into that channel. All right. So that's all the content I have to present for today. And I think now we can also address some of the additional questions in case the audience has any.
Yeah, and Joshua, you had raised your hand earlier, so if you wanted to still unmute yourself, I've enabled that, so you're welcome to right now.
Maybe he's on mute.
Yeah, he is on mute. If you still have a question, Joshua, you're welcome to unmute yourself now. If you still do have a question, you're welcome to unmute yourself, Joshua. Hugo, I did have a question for you, just based on past student projects so far. Do you have any advice for students as they're starting to think about how to fill out that proposal? I think one thing Lorraine had certainly said is definitely reach out to you or reach out to one of the mentors listed on that website as soon as possible, because they're willing to give feedback. I'm assuming that's still true. And do you have any other advice in preparing the proposal?
True. And actually, I have one backup slide here, if you will, since we have some additional time. Let me just show how the proposal looks like so we can actually discuss on top of a real example. So first of all, be aware the proposal does not need to be developed by your own. We encourage you to, whenever you have an idea, just put a simple sentence into an email and send it over to me. I will start discussing that idea with you, and we can all build a proposal together. At some point into that process, I will also loop the mentor, and we will collectively come up with a final proposal. all right? So by no means you need to be by yourself during this process. But one additional comment that I can make around the proposal is that you can suggest your own project, but you can also take a look at the topics we share on our student wiki. So once you log into the student wiki, we also have upfront a list of suggested projects that you can take a look and select from, right? And what are the key tips, if you will, when you are building your proposal? Highlight the main tasks. So here on the right side, we have an example of a project proposal. We have the title of the project, and the student listed here what he thinks he can accomplish as part of that proposal. So he started with a list of deliverables and a list of what he thinks he could achieve, perhaps or perhaps not. We call that a wish list, right? And the second tip that I would like to share is try to build a rough timeline around your tasks, just so we can have an idea of when you are planning to accomplish each task. And again, it doesn't need to be very detailed. It's just an overall idea, so we know you have actually gave a thought about the feasibility of that project. Okay. And of course, we'll also loop the mentor in it, and you can submit your proposal directly to me, like I told you, or in the student's mailbox that I'm listing here. Right? So those would be the key tips or suggestions or recommendations, if you will, I would make to the students.
Great. And just as a recommendation from me, I'll turn my video on just so everyone can see me again. I think the biggest thing that I've heard from a lot of students who've been interested in this but haven't applied is that they were really worried that they didn't know enough for it, or that maybe they didn't know some of these terms, or they're not super familiar with big data already. And in fact, I think earlier today, someone asked the question, do you need to know how to code? You certainly do need to know some amount of coding for this, but what we usually see is that most students get too afraid and they think that they don't know enough. And I think, Hugo, my understanding of this is that this is an opportunity for students to learn more about big data as well. So you're not expected to know everything coming into this. And part of the time that you'll spend is learning more about this, this field and this tool. And so my big recommendation to everyone is, even if you don't think that you know enough, try to put together one of these proposals. They're not that complicated. And you'll start to see that it may be a bit easier than you thought.
Yes. And on top of your speech, Tyler, remember, this is a partnership between our company and Codeday. We are here to allow students from Codeday to get into the IT industry. So by no means we would be providing hard requirements for you before you applying, because that will be for certain a full-time employee application or requisition. So we are here to allow you the opportunity of actually joining the IT industry. So we try to be as much as flexible in terms of requirements and previous knowledge. And again, if you never tried, you already have the answer as a no. So change that and give it a try, submit it, and we'll try our best to make sure both sides get into an agreement.
Yeah, and I also, on our side, on Codeday's side, I'm sure that Hugo and the mentors that are listed on the website and the students at HPCC Systems email address, I'm sure all of them would be very willing to answer any questions that you have. But if you feel nervous about that still, you're also welcome to ask me questions. You're welcome to ask any of the Codeday staff questions if you feel more comfortable asking us questions. And those questions can be anything. You really don't need to feel silly. If you just see a word, like looking at the sample proposal, it says something like document corpus. And if you don't know what a document corpus is, feel free to ask, because, for example, in the case of document corpus, that's a really fancy way of saying some data. And so if you don't know what that word means and it sounds, frightening to you, feel free to ask, send us a direct message on Discord, or send us an email, or whatever you're comfortable with. And I'm sure any of us would be happy to help you prepare that proposal.
For sure. I see another question, Tyler. Do we still have time to answer that one? I will be
Yeah,
glad.
I have as much time as you need.
Perfect. So Emmanuel has a question. How do you do the application to apply for the internship? Good question, Emmanuel, because we have been talking about the proposal, and actually that's all you need to apply. So once you have your proposal ready, just submit to the email address right here, students@hpccsystems.com, and we'll get the proposal from there. Probably you will get a feedback from the panel, either accepting or making recommendations to your proposal. But in any case, we always get back to you. There are no other stages in the application process. There are no interviews, no exams. Everything is around the proposal. So that's why it is really important that you work with us throughout this process, because that's the key element for the application process.
Yeah, and for anyone who has never gone through an interview, this is probably the most relaxed interview that you can imagine. It's not easier or harder, but it's much less relaxed than the traditional way that people do an interview, I think.
True, I agree with you. And remember, you will be exposed to interacting with other people throughout the internship, but that will be a much softer introduction than actually an interview like Tyler was saying. So take advantage of that.
Do we have any other questions for Hugo before we let him go? Oh, I see one more person has raised their hand. Juliet, I have allowed you to unmute yourself if you want to ask your question over voice chat.
Okay, hi. So the question is, if he mentioned that the program starts end of May. So what about students who are still in school up to like mid or late June?
We try to be flexible in that part, Juliet. That's why I didn't mention a hard start date to begin with. So we have seen cases where students started like early May or late June. I think that's how much flexible we can be. But you mentioned late July, right? Late July.
No, I said late June.
Late June? Oh, late June is perfectly fine. Late July, I will be a little bit concerned, because that means you will be getting into September, and that's usually very late in the year for us. But if you are thinking about mid-June, that would be perfectly fine on our end. And again, if you don't, and just a final message, if you don't find yourself within that range, for instance, you have like a trip schedule or something like that, don't make that preventing you to reach out to us. We have already worked around cases like that in the past. We try to assess the students' need on an individual basis. So
Okay.
Always give it a try. That's the key message here.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions from folks?
I think one more. Oh, thank you.
All right. You are able to unmute yourself now.
Hi, I have a question about a project proposal. Like, does it have to be centered towards HPCC, or does it have to be outside?
Good question. So the definitely needs to involve HPCC systems, but I wouldn't say it needs to be the core focus of the project. So let me give you an example. We have had projects last year in the documentation area where the student, it was actually a high school student, she found a certain document in our website who was not optimized or comprehensive. And she created a project where she was proposing a better style of documenting the language reference for our programming language. So that's actually a no coding project, but it was still related to HPCC systems. Okay, so answering your question, it has to be related to HPCC systems. It doesn't need to be the central focus of your project. You can approach it from very different perspectives. Let me know if, in case I didn't answer your question, but I hope so.
Great. Any other questions from folks?
I think Joshua had
one more. Joshua, you are you have permission to unmute yourself now.
Hi.
Okay, so I wanted to ask if am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes.
Okay, so I wanted to ask if I wanted to do a computer vision project, how do I go about with the project proposal and project data?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the first part of the question? Is that a robotic project?
So I will need help.
You're saying computer vision.
Oh, computer vision. Okay. Yes, we have had computer vision projects in the past.
Computer vision.
We actually have plugins in the platform that can do image visualization. So I would recommend you to either look at the projects we have there to see if they match what you're willing to do with computer vision. But if they don't, I would recommend you to try to apply your computer vision knowledge into our platform and explore if you can add that as a feature in our platform.
Yeah, and as with anything, any of these projects too, if you have specific questions about your project, I think the best place to do that would be to email Hugo or the student's address, or to look at that webpage and find a mentor who is aligned with your interests. And you can also contact me if you need any help with that.
Okay. I'll contact you. And also, I'm from Africa, and this internship will be happening in summer, and I'll be in school during summer. So I just wanted to know how flexible is the internship. Can I adjust it with my school? Because Africa here, summer will be in school.
I'm not sure I captured that, Tyler. How much flexible we can be in terms of...
The question was that in Africa, a lot of countries have school going into the summer. So how flexible things can be around that.
All right, yeah. So usually we ask the students to be a commitment around 40 hours per week. So it depends on how tight your schedule is, but if you have a full-time course at the same time of the internship, I think it will be too much of a workload for you. But if you're just taking one or two classes and you can dedicate yourself for 40 hours a week, I would still encourage you to apply. So if you want to send me with your schedule so I can take a look, we can also go from there.
Cool. Thank you, Joshua.
Okay, sure. I'll
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then we did have one more Q&A question. Is this internship also for people who aren't currently in college? So it is also for high school students. But Hugo, I don't know if you have any guidance around people who maybe are taking a boot camp or something that's not a traditional education like that.
Yeah, I mean, if you have recently completed high school or any other course, you might still be eligible for the internship. That's usually not the common case. But again, feel free to reach out to me and we can discuss your case separately.
Great. Okay, well, thank you everyone for coming. I really appreciate all of your interest. This webinar will be or has been recorded, so we will be uploading that recording later. So if people want to go back and take a look at any of this information, feel free. I would really strongly encourage anyone, if you're thinking of applying for this, but maybe you're still a little bit worried that you don't know enough or something else, at the very least, send me a message. I'm happy to give you some advice and just tell you whether or not, we think that you should apply, because I know that in the past, a lot of people have talked themselves out of applying because they didn't feel like they were good enough. And I'm happy to take a look and say, yes, we think that, that you should apply for this. You're also, of course, welcome to email Hugo or that email on the screen right now, students@hpccsystems.com. Yeah, thanks so much, Hugo, for taking the time for this session. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Tyler. Thank you everyone for attending.
Okay. All right, thanks everyone. Have a great rest of your morning, evening, wherever in the world you are, and we'll see you in the future.